Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Season 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering top lane Quinn, Demacia's Wings.
Fly swiftly, kill swiftly.
Alright, so let's kick off this guide by first looking at Quinn's pros. So Quinn is a very strong laner with some really high mobility. She is rather safe because of course she is a ranged champion, and when she does get her ultimate she can roam around the map really quickly and start snowballing. This gives Quinn a ton of map pressure, and you have to be very careful when you don't see Quinn on the map because she might show up on your lane any second. She has a really nice blind ability and some self-peel as well, so she is also a pretty strong duelist. There's not a lot of champions out there that can deal with Quinn in a 1v1. Then finally, Quinn is also a champion with some pretty significant burst damage. With either a high lethality or a crit build, she can jump on enemies rather easily and delete them almost instantly. Quinn, however, like every other champion in League, does have her fair share of cons as well. Now, since of course she does want to go for a high damage build, she is rather squishy. This can potentially be a really big issue because if your jungler or your support don't go tanky either, you may have no frontline whatsoever. Now, of course, since she is so squishy, she's also going to be pretty weak against crowd controls. If she does get caught in a long duration crowd control in a team fight, there's pretty much no chance that you're going to get out of it. Finally, Quinn is a pretty weak team fighter. She makes a pretty solid top lane bully, and she's great at roaming around the map and deleting single targets, but when it comes to a straight 5v5, she is pretty lackluster. Therefore, you do want to spend a lot of your time split pushing and try to avoid team fights unless of course you are needed. For your runes on Quinn, you'll want to go for precision and sorcery, grabbing fleet footwork as your keystone. This will give you some really nice added movement speed whenever it does proc, and of course some nice healing, giving you some extra lane sustain. This is great just for that added sustain, or of course just in duels because you will be able to kite a lot easier. You'll then want to follow up by getting Triumph so your takedowns restore missing health and grant you additional gold, and then pick up Alacrity so your takedowns grant you permanent attack speed. Then finally finish up Precision by getting Coup de Grace so you deal more damage to low health enemy champions, letting you finish them off just a little bit easier. In the sorcery side, I pretty much always go for Celerity and Gathering Storm. Celerity is really solid because you will be granted extra movement speed, making your roams even quicker, and some attack damage based on your movement speed as well. Then of course you want to pick up Gathering Storm so you get increasing amounts of AD as the game progresses, so you're able to carry in the later stages of the game on top of it. If you do have some mana issues, you could of course go for Mana Flow Band as well to help with that, but usually I like to stick with Celerity and Gathering Storm. For my summoner spells, I first like to pick up Flash. This is a really solid summoner on Quinn because of course you are a rather squishy champion and you can use it multiple times throughout a game to save your life. You do of course also have the option of using it offensively to close a gap on an enemy champion to help finish him off for a kill. As for my second summoner spell, I pretty much always take Ignite. Quinn is a champion that relies on snowballing throughout the game, and of course Ignite will help you accomplish this. You do of course also have the option of going for Teleport instead, but usually I don't really go for that because you have so much mobility from your ultimate and it's not that necessary. I like to stick with Ignite. Quinn's passive ability is Harrier, which marks targets and allows you to do additional damage. Valor will periodically mark a target that is visible for 4 seconds and reveal them. When Quinn basic attacks a target that is marked, she will do additional damage, which is based off of your AD ratio. Now this passive's cooldown is also reduced by your critical strike chance, so when you do get a bunch of critical strike chance items, you will have a really low cooldown on this ability, and it will help you pump out a lot of additional damage. But to use this passive, you want to attack the enemy champion as much as you can when this ability is on top of them so you can do additional damage. It is pretty hard to deal with. This will also mark minions as well, so if you are in the lane phase, you can also use this to help you last hit minions and easily get their gold. Your Q ability is Blinding Assault, which is your really strong blinding ability that also does a big chunk of damage. When activated, you shoot out Valor in a line that stops when it collides with a unit and deals physical damage, and also applies Near Sight for 1.5 seconds. If it is a non-champion, they will instead be disarmed for the same duration, so it's great at clearing through jungle and of course just minions. The AD damage ratio on the ability is between 80 and 120%, so it can do a lot of damage if you get points into this ability as quickly as possible. It is also one of the main reasons Quinn is such a strong duelist, because a 1.5 second blind is a great way to get off some free damage. In teamfights, try to get this on a high damage carry so they can't get off their damage, and you'll have a much easier time winning the teamfight. Your W ability is Heightened Senses, which can give you some bonus stats and reveal the target area. So passively, whenever you attack a vulnerable target, Quinn will be granted bonus attack speed and bonus movement speed for 2 seconds. The bonus attack speed is between 20 and 80%, and the bonus movement speed is between 20 and 40%. When you activate the ability, Quinn will order Valor to reveal the target area around her for 2 seconds. So this ability is pretty nice because you will passively be granted bonus attack speed and movement speed whenever you attack a vulnerable target, and therefore have a really nice damage increase. It's also great when activated because of course you are a really squishy champion, and being able to reveal the area around you is a great way to know if it's safe to go in or not, because if somebody gets the jump on you, you're going to be screwed. Your E ability is Vault, which allows you to dash to the target unit. Whenever you do this, you will also knock them back, deal physical damage, and slow them by 50%, which decays over 1.5 seconds, and afterwards you will leap backwards and land 525 units away from the target. Now this ability only has a 20% bonus AD ratio, but it gives you some really solid mobility, and it's really nice for kiting. Not only will the target be knocked back, but you will slow them and also push yourself away from them, so it's really hard to stay on top of a Quinn when she has Vault available. Basically, whenever you're in trades and team fights and you need some space away from an enemy, use this ability and create yourself a really nice gap. And finally, that brings us to our ultimate behind enemy lines. When you activate this ability, you'll channel for 2 seconds, and when successful, you will be picked up by Valor and be granted a lot of movement speed. This is between 70 and 130%. This of course is what allows Quinn to move quickly around the map because she can use this over and over again, get a really big chunk of movement speed, and get to the target she needs to get to. When you do get crowd controlled during this ultimate, you will be dismounted, and if you take normal damage, you will lose that bonus movement speed for 3 seconds. When you reactivate the ability or attack, you'll deal 40% AD physical damage to all enemies nearby. This is definitely not a ton of damage, but the better part of the ultimate is all that movement speed. 130% extra movement speed can get you around the map insanely quickly. As soon as you are level 6 in that top lane, you should be looking to roam with this ultimate because it can get you some really easy kills. For your skill order, you first want to put a point to your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your Q ability first because it has a scaling AD ratio and it is a really strong blinding ability. I then usually like to focus on maxing my E ability second because of course the cooldown will drop on the ability, and this will give you a lot easier kiting throughout the lane phase. It is still very viable, however, to max your W second instead because it does have the scaling bonus attack speed and bonus movement speed, and of course you can activate it more often for vision. It's completely up to you, both are really solid options to max second, but usually I'll go for E. During the lane phase, you'll of course want to first focus on farming because your core build is a bit expensive and you are technically an AD carry, so if you get your items you can output a lot of damage and be able to carry the game. Now since you are a really strong top lane ranged champion, you want to try to harass the enemy champion as much as you can. If they do dip really low, you can obviously go for a kill, but your main priority is to get them away from the minions so they can't farm. When you are level 6, you'll gain a lot of mobility with your ultimate, so you want to try to roam as much as you can, especially in the mid lane and the jungle. Finally, make sure you ward your lane at all times. It is very important to do because people will try to shut down a Quinn because you are definitely a lane bully. Now in team fights, you're definitely not the strongest team fighter, so usually you want to split push until you're actually needed. If you can put a ton of pressure on the enemy team, there might not even be any team fights anyways, and you can take objectives while they are trying to get one. Now if you do have to team fight, you want to either try to assassinate a squishy on the backline or stay on your own backline and output your damage safely. This will completely depend on the team comp you're against. Next, of course, you'll want to try to land your blind on a carry. This can greatly reduce their damage output and stop a lot of their damage. In the scenario that you do actually win a team fight, you want to make sure you take an objective afterwards because you want to try to snowball that win as much as you can. Now let's look at some of Quinn's hard matchups, and first up is Irelia. She's going to be a pretty hard matchup for you because she can kill you really quickly, she's at least somewhat tanky, and she has some pretty decent mobility as long as minions are nearby. She can dash multiple times, making it pretty easy to get on top of you, hold you in an area, and get off her damage. Therefore, you just want to be very careful through the lane phase, make sure you don't actually get too close to her, and just poke her down whenever you can. For the next hard matchup, we've got Jace. He's a pretty hard matchup for you because he does of course also have a range form, so he doesn't actually have to be anywhere near you, and he can also combo you down really quickly with his hammer. Try to dodge his accelerated shock blast combos as much as you can because if you are getting hit by them rather often, he's just going to go into hammer form, get on top of you, and finish you off. Next up, we've got Swain. Swain's going to be pretty hard for you because he has some decent sustain and tankiness, so he's going to be really hard to bring down. At the same time, he can actually output some pretty decent damage, especially against squishy targets like Quinn, so you have to be very careful. Make sure you're dodging his skill shots throughout the lane phase, don't engage onto him too much if you know he has his ultimate, and just focus on poking him down. And last up, we've got Wukong. He is a pretty annoying matchup because he has some pretty decent mobility, can output a lot of damage quickly, and then easily get out with his W. Therefore, you'll have to be very careful, especially if he's going for a high lethality build, because he can chunk the absolute crap out of you. Make sure you save onto your disengage, because if he gets on top of you in ultimates, you're pretty much screwed. Alright, let's finish this off with the item build, which starts with a Doran's Blade, Health Potion, and a Warding Totem. Quinn is a really strong lane bully, so you can definitely get away with always starting with the Doran's Blade, at least in 90% of your matchups. In the odd matchup, you may want to consider getting a Doran's Shield, but usually just go for the Blade so you can output all that damage. For your core build, you have the Youmuu's Ghost Blade, Static Shiv, and your choice of boots. The Youmuu's Ghost Blade is a really nice first item because you will get a bunch of attack damage, lethality, cooldown reduction, and some really nice added mobility whenever you activate it, which is great when used with your ultimate. The Static Shiv is then a really nice way to increase your damage even farther by getting some attack speed and critical strike chance. The wave clear that this item provides is also great when you are split pushing on Quinn because she doesn't have a ton of AoE damage. As for your boots, you pretty much always want to go for Berserker Greaves, but you could always get Merc Treads or Ninja Tabis as well as a defensive. For your item pool, you first could get the Duskblade. This will obviously give Quinn even more burst damage. Now, it's not something I like to take too much on Quinn myself. I prefer going for some critical strike chance items, but it is pretty awesome if you do want to go for an assassination build. Next up would be that King of Crit, the Infinity Edge. You'll get some nice attack damage, some critical strike chance, and increased critical strike damage. Even when you combine this with just the Static Shiv, you'll have 50% critical strike chance with increased critical strike damage, and you'll output a ton of damage. If you want to increase your critical strike chance and attack speed even farther, you can get either the Phantom Dancer or a Rapid Fire Cannon. I definitely recommend going for the Phantom Dancer, but if you feel like you're going to have a really hard time getting in any damage because of the champions you're against, then you may want the Rapid Fire Cannon for the increased range. If you were against a pretty tanky lineup, you get either Blade of the Ruined King or one of the armor penetration items. The Blade of the Ruined King is really nice because of that extra on-hit damage, but it also has attack speed, lifesteal, and attack damage on it, making it a great item. Of course, against really high armor teams, you may want either the Mortal Reminder or an LDR. LDR would be my favorite of the two options, but if you do need the Grievous Wounds, then make sure you go for Mortal Reminder. Then, if you are against some AP assassins, you may want to consider getting a Maw. It gives you a really nice defensive shield when you do take a bunch of magic damage and can really increase your survivability. Now for the last item, as a last defensive, you could always get Guardian Angel. This is an item I like a lot on Quinn because it does give you some more attack damage, but also a defensive that makes you come back to life if you do die in the later stages of the game. For my example full build, I take the core build with some Berserker Greaves and get Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and Guardian Angel. You'll be outputting a ton of damage with this build, you'll have some nice mobility from the Youmuu's Ghost Blade, and a really nice defensive from the Guardian Angel. And that covers everything for top lane Quinn.
If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.